Hey there everyone, Josiah here with Womprat Creations, and we are continuing along on the build and painting and weathering of this beautiful Hero A New Hope DL44 kit that I got from Blaster Factory. And the next thing on the docket is the second most important part of this blaster. Last time we took care of the scope. This time I'm going to go ahead and take care of the scope mount, because the scope is kind of worthless if I have no way to put it on the blaster. So let's get into it. Hey there everyone, Josiah here with Womprat Creations, and it is time to, so in the last video, I put together and weathered the scope for my DL44. So now I need to do the same thing for the scope mount. It has a whole assembly which I have laid out in front of me. And once again, the machining on this kit just blows me away. I mean, this level of craftsmanship is just beyond me. I wouldn't know where to start with some of these pieces, and they were the folks over at Blaster Factory were able to figure it out, and I am eternally grateful because this is turning out to be a really fun kit. But now, like I said, I have the scope mount assembly laid out in front of me, and I think I am going to do a similar weathering job as I did with the scope, but I am also going to do something a little different with this piece. This piece is the piece that actually attaches onto the side of the blaster to hold up the whole assembly. And this has some pretty heavy chipping along the sides, and I could go through with a tool and nick off some paint after I paint it, but I'd rather have it be a little more controlled so I can make sure that I get the look that I'm going for. So what I'm going to do with this piece, and really only this piece, is I'm going to use some masking fluid to go along the edges and mask off some damage of the actual metal, and then that way when I paint it I can go back and take off that masking fluid after and have those areas shine through of the actual metal. Then for the rest of this, from what I can tell from my reference pictures, is it's going to be a pretty similar weathering job of I'm going to put on some flat black, then I'm going to go in with some steel wool and just kind of rough up the edges and see what kind of effects I can get with that. Yeah, this one is mainly a weathering job for this, but I'm super excited for this. The more that I get done on this blaster, the more excited I get, because I mean, Han Solo's blaster is just so iconic. I can't think of, there are very few guns in movies, period, that are as iconic as the DL44. And I think every Star Wars fan at one point or another has wanted to put their hands on one and be able to own one, and now I can. I had one before and it's fine. It's fine, and it was fun to put together, but it's a 3D print, which means it's fairly light, and it just, there's something about having a prop in your hand that feels really cool. But then the way you take that a step further is when it weighs the right amount, when it has the right feel to it, when it has the right, it takes up the right amount of space. That is just, it takes it to a whole nother level, and that is why I am so excited to get this this blaster finished, because I can't wait to wave it around. And I think that that will inspire some future builds as well. So let's get on to some weathering stuff. All right, so for those of you who have not heard me talk about masking fluid before, this should be in every prop maker's arsenal. This stuff is almost irreplaceable for the function it serves. And the function is it is a liquid that you can take out and put onto an object, and it will semi-dry from its liquid state and harden into kind of a hard rubber, or like a silicone almost. Then you can paint over your object, and then you can go back and peel off the dried masking fluid, and it acts like when you're masking something with tape. You're preventing paint from getting onto that surface. This creates a very realistic chipping, like paint chipping effect, because you're actually essentially chipping the paint. You're going to a different layer. You can do different things to get a similar effect, but you won't get that slight dimensional difference between the paint layer and then the layer below. In my experience, there's nothing else out there other than masking fluid that can easily create that effect. I suppose you could use masking tape you could cut out shapes for masking tape and do it like that, but that just sounds terrible. Masking fluid is really, really nice because it's almost like when when you're younger and you put glue on your hands and you kind of let it dry and then you can like peel it off. It's almost the same thing. It's got that kind of consistency. There are a couple things to keep in mind when you're using it. The most annoying thing about it is that when you put masking fluid onto a piece and then you're trying to put, it dries fairly quickly. So when you go to try to put more like next to it, if you accidentally grab the masking fluid that's dried a bit, you'll end up tearing it up and then you have to go back and redo it. So you kind of have to be careful when you're having to go back and forth. Like for big damage areas on like a Boba Fett helmet, when you have to constantly go back and forth from the jar to your piece, you got to be careful that you don't grab any of the already dried masking fluid on your piece, because that will ruin your day real quick. But it's really fun stuff. It's fairly cheap. You can find it. I mean, I get this at Hobby Lobby. This is Winsor & Newton masking fluid, and like I said, I get this from Hobby Lobby. I've also used Humbrol's masking fluid, which is actually really nice because it's actually purple in color. This stuff dries clear, essentially. Humbrol's dries purple, so it's just easier for you to see where it is. It's easier for your eye to pick it up. But that being said, they both work about the same. I haven't noticed any difference in quality with any of the different masking fluids I've used. So if you don't have some, pick some up. It's not very expensive, and just play around with it. It's a super useful tool. The only other thing that I can say about masking fluid is it can be kind of challenging to figure out what to use to put it onto your object, because if you use a paintbrush, that fluid is going to get into the bristles of the brush and it's going to destroy your brush. It's going to be not usable as a brush anymore. It'll just harden all into one, and if you try to peel the masking fluid out of that after it's dried, it'll just take out bristles and it's a bad day. So don't use a paintbrush if you don't plan on throwing that paintbrush away afterwards. I've seen people use toothpicks. That works fine. My go-to is actually this plastic dental tool. It has two sides, and I use the two different sides for different things. If I have a smaller detail I'm trying to do, I'll use the smaller end, and if it's something bigger, I can just use this bigger end. But this has actually turned out to be my go-to for masking fluid, just because it works really, really well. And once I'm done and the masking fluid dries, I can just peel it off, and the plastic, this is a plastic end and this is a rubber end, they're both fine afterwards. I can keep reusing it over and over again. So if you're having problems trying to find something to dispense your masking fluid, pick up a little plastic dental tool. The reason I like the plastic more than the traditional metal ones is the metal ones, if you're not careful, can scratch what you're trying to put it on. And that might be something you want, but most of the time it's not what I'm looking for. So this, the plastic allows me to actually like touch and not be as gentle on my piece, and I don't have to worry about if I'm scratching it or not. So let's get some masking fluid on this. All right, guys. I have all of my flat black paint on here. I have everything laid out, and I think it is okay. All right. I think it is time to peel off the masking fluid from this piece right here, and I gotta say, I told you there's a lot of good reasons to use masking fluid, and peeling it off once you're done with it is the best part about using masking fluid. So let's peel that off. Then I'm gonna get my steel wool out, and I'm gonna rough up some of these other pieces for a little bit of weathering. Then I think we will be good to assemble this and put it on the blaster and put the scope in. So, yeah, I think that's it. Let's get to it. All right, guys, this is really starting to shape up to be a really nice build. And aside from maybe the flash hider or suppressor, whatever you want to call it, the scope might be the second most important thing to this blaster to make it look right. Without the scope on there, even with the flash hider, you might see it as a Star Wars blaster, but you're not going to recognize it as Han Solo's blaster without this scope. So the scope and the scope mount, those are the only parts that I've done any kind of work on this so far. But I gotta say, I am pleased with how they've come out so far, and each piece that I'm doing on this is getting me more and more excited for the next. I cannot wait for this whole thing to be finished. But unfortunately, both you and I are gonna have to wait until next time for that. So, thank you for tuning in for this week's Scratch Build. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Hey, thank you so much for watching that whole video. That really helps us out with continuing to bring you these cool videos. The other thing that really helps us out is our merch. You can head over to wompratcreations.com and pick yourself up some really cool stuff, just like this Visit Scenic Hoth travel t-shirt. Thanks, guys.
517 to scanner control. 517 to scanner control. 316, report to control. 53 to upper bay door. 53 to upper bay door.